the whole thing about the BBC is that their audience is going down, like terrestrial TV. How can they justify that we have to pay for them anymore?
It's a very good question. I mean, the rate that it's going down is quite extraordinary. I mean, it's 250,000 fewer people paid a license fee last year. I mean, if that carries on at that rate, this is really existential. So I'm not surprised that government watchdogs like the National Audit Office, who've published this report, are asking these questions now. But the fact of the matter is the BBC should have taken these questions very, very seriously a long time ago, and they just didn't. And I think that was to do with hubris. It was to do with arrogance. We've got all the best talent. We've got this legal right to exist.
Oh, trust me, they haven't. They've got some really thick, rather boring and fairly stupid people. I work for the BBC. I probably won't work for the BBC again, but I don't really care.
But they do. I mean, they think.
Well, they get away with it. That's why they do. They do get away with it.
Yeah. I mean, they just have no idea. Listen to some of their local stations, even in the big cities. You know, they're just rubbish.
Yeah.
I've heard better radio stations online.
Yeah, and well, we're people are probably listening to us online now. I mean, and this is really what it comes down to. But I mean, people have known that for a long time. But when you're talking about beasts like YouTube, right? So this report reveals that 12% of all viewing now is done on YouTube. The BBC can't even compete with YouTube, and it shouldn't, right? YouTube is about user-generated content. You, Ash, were talking about your kids watching TikTok. Like, the BBC can't do this. I mean, I've recently discovered how good YouTube is, and I watch a load of weird stuff about, like, camping and sort of building huts in the woods. And my wife said if I watch any more of this boring content on YouTube, she's going to send me to live in a cabin in the woods the other day. So
do you know when
up with me.
When I'm in bed, I don't watch TV anymore. I watch, some of these really strange YouTube channels.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch the BBC sort of try and compete with this. I mean, this is where we've ended up with a lot of their quite weird podcasts and stuff that they're doing, and they're moving into territory that really I think they have no business doing. And I mean, so this report that we're talking about now it's a good report. It highlights some good things, but I think they're just asking completely the wrong question here. They're saying, why isn't the BBC competing with Netflix, and why isn't it competing with YouTube and TikTok and all these things? And it really is the wrong question to ask. What we should be asking is that the BBC should have really 20 years ago have commercialised, gone global, and really thrust British talent and British broadcasting expertise all around the world, made millions. We could have had a Netflix domiciled and paying tax in the UK, but we didn't, because the BBC thought it would leech off this teletax, which basically levies on everyone, which means it doesn't have to get better, it doesn't have to improve, it doesn't have to compete. And the thing is, we're talking about let's stop them. And Boris has obviously recently backed out. He's collapsed. He's given up that promise that he made to all us that he would take on the BBC. But actually, maybe we should look at this in a good way. The BBC and technology, they're making themselves redundant. So even if Boris doesn't have the backbone, even if Dominic Cummings is out the door now, and really it's looking like the Tory party is going to go back to its old comfortable way. It's happening anyway. They're becoming redundant. And what we keep being told is if we lose the BBC, it will be just like Fox News, and all we'll have is Fox News. And I just think that is such fallacy. We've already seen that public service broadcasting in this country is becoming more opinionated, and some of it, like LBC, is incredibly dull, and it's not all necessarily.
I'm glad you said that, Liam. If you'd said anything else, I would have cut you straight off.
But
having worked there myself for 5 or 6 years.
There's some good people. There's some good people on LBC, but sometimes it does put you to sleep almost as much as the BBC. So the people that are sort of saying that, if we lose our public service broadcasting, we take away this and that, we'll all just go crazy, and it's just not the case. No. And that is a scare tactic.
But the over 75s do watch a lot of telly. In fact, some say they abuse it. They use it so much, don't they?
They do. And the most criminal thing about that is the over 75s are the ones that are less able to quickly go over to YouTube, quickly to go over to TikTok and find other...
Because of their fumbling fingers, like James, They get the right... And then they get something they do. They really shouldn't be seeing at their age. And they're in shock. They're in shock because they don't know.
Insulted by the BBC. They're the ones that are being told that, because most older people are more likely to be Brexiteers, they're more likely to be Tories, And, and I think that is what the BBC is going to end up with. They're going to end up talking to an older audience of people that are unable to watch something else. And they're going to end up, talking to them as if they're the teenagers that they can't get anyway. So they're doing all this woke content.
But they're not going to...
I think they're losing. I mean, we saw with Nagaman Chatty the other day when she did that talk for some big bank or something and rated it.
One rule for one rule for the other.
Exactly. And basically they're using their profile that we pay to give them then to go and leverage that for more money. And we're going to hit a lot of sort of strange questions like this as the BBC, I think, begins to decline and it begins to run out of cash and begins to become more desperate. Because I think there's the question about BritBox as well is quite interesting, where they've launched like a rival to Netflix, right? And they've teamed up with Channel 4 and ITV. But it's going to be a bit odd because what you're going to end up there with is basically a commercial service which is aiming to rake in commercial money, but it's going to be sort of subsidised by the state. Do you know what I mean? And I know the BBC do claim that their commercial wing is they concentrate on abroad and the sort of the public service.
They should have a commercial wing.
Well, they definitely should be selling good content abroad, right?
Yeah.
I don't question.
That's how they should pay for themselves, like Top Gear. We used to make money.
Well, okay, but while we pay for them, I don't see why they've got a commercial wing.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's a tension there, right? Isn't there? There's something that doesn't quite make sense. If you had like a state, a company that made furniture that was sort of getting 50, 70, 80% of its profits from the state, but then also raking it in on the side, we'd ask questions like, why is this one company dominating this industry, but it's also competing for customers alongside them? We're ending up in a really strange place there. And I think the reason we're getting in such an uncomfortable place is because the BBC's role is now so confused in this modern media environment. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And as I say, this report raises some really interesting figures, but it asks all the wrong questions. And I think you really summed it up there, James, when you just said how wrong that is. Why are we subsidising it? I don't get it either. Riddle me this.
When are we going to actually get rid of this thing? Because we've been talking about it for years and years and years. How long is it going to take, I wonder, until we actually get rid of the licence fee? The BBC can do whatever they like as long as they pay for it themselves. But how long is it going to take?
Well, if it's true that just 7% of 18 to 25 are watching it daily, by the time they are the majority generation, they're the generation that are paying their bills, that are paying, so that, some of them are already starting to pay bills. So we're looking at maybe 20 years max. You possibly at a situation where unsustainable levels of the population are paying that. I mean, maybe it will rise a little bit from that 7%, but definitely that generation will be, as you said earlier as well, how odd it is that you have to get a license playing like a TV. I have an American friend. I remember telling him about the TV license. He was like, a license, like a gun. You have to get a license to have a TV.
Well, how do they pay for their PBS, the public broadcasting? How's that paid for?
There's all sorts of models. It's general taxation, really. I mean, that's how Germany and
get a grant
stuff do it. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to ask questions about that as well, because if you're paying it from your general taxation, we're all still paying for it, and we might not want that service. So we've got to be very careful that the BBC don't just realise that people are fed up and they don't want to pay for it, so then they just take it out of our paychecks instead.
Yeah, that's true.
And public service broadcasts around the world are a lot smaller, especially in America. It's not, and they don't really need it. I mean, that is a difficult question. And the other question is, if and I think when they commercialise this giant institution, we need to have a debate in this country about who gets the money if they sell it off, because we basically have funded. We own that thing. Right?
Well, it would just go to the Treasury, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, should it not be redistributed to those of us who've lived in this country the longest?
Yes, that's right, yes.
And however long you've lived here, that's how much you get as a sliding scale.
Good idea.
It is a really sort of difficult question. I mean, that's what's happened when we've sort of sold off other industries like the trains and the steel and stuff. The Treasury's just taken it up, but the licence is slightly different because it was paid for by licenses rather than general taxation. So there's a bit of a difference there. Really interesting. I don't know what the answer is to that. But I mean, what I am absolutely certain of, when the BBC finally packs it in, there will be a boom in this country in independent media producers. You know, there will be an absolute boom of creativity and people setting up shop and really meeting all sorts of niches. And you said, Ash, earlier that, you know, the BBC should do things that aren't commercially viable, but I think the whole reason the whole sector is struggling to find a commercial raison d'etre, a commercial model, is partly because of the BBC sucking up so much
out all the goodness.
The energy from the sector. There will always be, I mean, media all around the world. The other big question for the media is obviously social media, right? You know, they are sucking up 80% of the ad revenue, and they're not giving it to the newspapers, which are the reason that people go onto social media anyway. That's another question, really. There's lots of challenges facing it, but the BBC should not be compounding that problem. It should not be making that problem worse for the British creative and media and arts industries, just as they're struggling with the social media giants as they are.
Liam, thank you very much indeed. Very well said, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't see why any of us should have to pay a license fee for one channel, and then you're free to watch any other channel or buy any other channel. Seems ridiculous. Liam, thank you very much indeed. Liam Deacon.